Hello friends, we are moving on to trigonometry 12. So we'll be looking at some questions and how we can find some graphs for the functions. Sketch the graphs of the following functions in the range theta between 0 and 2 pi. In each case, state the period of the function and its frequency. So we want to do that straight away. So if you look at this first one, for sine 4 theta, if you look at sine theta is this figure stretched between 0 and 2 pi. Sine theta is this figure stretched between 0 and 2 pi. And so that is how we do that. In the highest height is 1, and it hovers between -1 and 1 for sine theta. And so this is what we call the amplitude for sine theta. Now, for sine 4 theta, we will multiply this 4 by the amplitude of sine theta, which is 1, and that gives us the frequency for this, which is 4. Good. Now, the period, that is the pattern of repetition from 0 to 2 pi, that is for sine theta. They're saying that is this figure that is stretched from 0 to this, giving us our sine theta within 0 and 2 pi. But for sine 4 theta, we have it differently. So for sine theta, we say that the period is 2 pi because this repetition is seen from 0 to 2 pi for sine theta. And so from there, every 360 or every 2 pi will give us that same pattern. And that gives us a period or the repetition aspect of sine theta. Now, so based on that, if you want to find the period for sine 4 theta, all we do is that we pick the period for sine theta and divide the period, which is 2 pi, by 4. And so that's what we've done here. So 2 pi on 4 gives us pi on 2. So that's why we have this repetition here. This one repeats itself from this to that. And so we get 4 of this repetition until we get 2 pi. So that's how we sketch it. All these are helping us to sketch this graph. And so we normally use this and others until 2 pi to sketch this. And so that's how we go by that. Now, if we look at sec 2 theta, we can write it as 1 over cos 2 theta. Now, one, we all say that the frequency is 2 if you look at cos, and then the period, that is 2 pi, so we divide by 2 and then we get pi. Now, we sketch the graph for cos 2 theta, and then that is in our mind, and then we invert the faces, the various sections, we invert them, and that will give us sec 2 theta. And so that's what we have done over here. The normal graph for this, and then we invert the sections, and so that will give us this diagram. So look at it carefully. Look at this carefully. That's great. Now, we want to also draw the graph of tan theta on 4. Now, straight away over here, our frequency will be 1 over 4. And then the period, remember that the period for tan is pi. So we divide by 1 on 4, and that gives us 4 pi. So within 0 to 4 pi, get the full graph. That is that. So within every 4 pi, the graph repeats itself. And so that is how the whole thing. So look at the tan, how it is done. Remember the period is pi, so you divide 1 on 4, and that gives you the period. Then you then move on to the sketching. Look at it carefully. That is great. Now 4, we have sine 2 theta. We want to sketch this. So the frequency is 2 from here. And the period, we shall divide 2 pi by 2. We are reminding ourselves that 2 pi is the period for sine theta. But for us to find the period for sine 2 theta, we divide 2 pi by our 2. That gives us pi. Then from there, we pick our values, and then we sketch. So you could see that from 0 to pi, it gives us the normal pattern of the sine wave, but that is between 0 and pi. And this will repeat itself 2 times until we get to 2 pi. So frequency is 2 and the period is pi, and look at the pattern. So the repetition pattern is from 0 to pi, get a sine wave, and then pi to 2 pi also give us the sine wave. So two of those, and that's why I have sine 2 theta, right? Now I want to move on to cot 2 theta. We are dealing with tangent, so cot 2 theta will be equal to 1 over tan 2 theta. And so our frequency will be 2. The period we shall divide pi by 2. So the period for this graph will be pi on 2. So it means that between 0 and pi on 2, you get a graph. Then I'll repeat itself every pi on 2. Good. So let's look at how we sketched it. So this is how we do that. Look at it carefully, taking notes of the indications that we have over here. Fantastic. Now we want to sketch sine theta plus pi on 3. Now, graphs of this nature, what will happen is that there will be a shift of the normal sine theta graph, pi on 3 to the left. Pi on 3 to the left. And so that's what have been done. Now, if you look at it, you have sine theta plus pi on 3. So our frequency will be 1. And then our period will also be 2 pi because the coefficient here is 1. And then the shift to the left, pi on 3. So this is the normal curve, but then it's actually between, have it between our 2 pi. But then what happens is that there will be a shift to the left. So let's take note of that. So questions of this nature, that is how we normally go by that. 7 is saying that cos 3 theta minus pi on 3. Now, for this one too, if we equate the whole of this to 0, our theta will be pi on 9. So for this one too, there will be a shift to the right. There will be a shift of pi on 9 to the right. And so that is what has been done. And our frequency from here is 3. Our period, we shall divide 2 pi by 3. You all know the period for cos theta is 2 pi, but the period for cos 3 theta minus pi on 3, basing everything on this, will be 2 pi on 3. And there will be a shift by pi on 9 to the right. And so that is what has been done to this. There is a shift. And so look at how it is done. Remember the shift, and then use the normal conditions that we know to sketch it. Right. Question 8, we want to sketch the graph of cosec 3 theta. Remember that cosec is 1 over sine. Now the frequency for that will be 3, and then the period will be 2 pi divided by our 3. Then remember that we are drawing the curve of sine 3 theta, and then we invert the sections because of cosec 3 theta. So we invert the sections, and that gives us this figure. So we get this by inverting the sine 3 theta curves in their faces. All right, so let's look at this carefully. That's fantastic. Now I want to sketch negative sine theta on 4. So our frequency will be 1 on 4, and the period will be 2 pi divided by 1 on 4, and that will be 8 pi. So within every 8 pi, we shall get the sine wave over there. Remember, dealing with negative, and so because of that, there will be a 10. Okay, so that's why we actually have this. So look at it carefully. That's great. I also want to draw the graph of cos 2 theta plus pi on 2, and this one too, there will be a shift of pi on 4 to the left. There will be a shift. When we equate the whole of this to 0, our theta will be negative pi on 4, so there will be a shift to the left. And so that is what have been done over here. Then our period will also be 2 pi divided by 2, so we'll get pi. So within pi, we'll get a sine wave over there. So look at it carefully and look at the shift, how the whole thing has been done. Look at the shift, a shift of negative, that is pi on 4. Great. That's great. Move on to the 11th question, tan theta minus pi on 6. And this one to the will be a shift to the right by pi on 6. And our period is 1. Sorry, our period is pi, and then our frequency is 1. Our period is pi and our frequency is 1. And then we use the normal values to sketch it. That's great. All right. So that's how the whole thing is. Great, my good friends. So you can take your time and go through the slides again. If you face any problems, let me know. You can go to my platform at the YouTube and then send the questions via the email. Thank you so very much and have a blessed day.